It's the Jack and Joe show. Welcome along to the show. And we are talking after Fulham have got 3 points. Haven't been able to say that for a while. Fulham up to 11 points in the table. And it was a great weekend for Fulham, not so much for Wolverhampton Wanderers, but Joe Sansom alongside me. Fulham 3, Wolves 0. And you weren't in your usual seat on Saturday. You were in hospitality.
I couldn't believe it. I don't know how I'd wrangled it. Yeah, trust me, guys. I want to say this right now. I cannot afford hospitality. I got it very, very fortunately through work for someone that couldn't attend. And I have to say, it was fantastic. To anyone that hasn't tried out the dugout, which is most people, because until the weekend it was me as well, it's quite expensive. But what I would say is that if you ever do have the opportunity, it's 100% worth it. The seat that you get is phenomenal. Unlimited food and drink before and after the game. So it was fantastic. But the most interesting thing was 100% how different the view was from where I usually perch in H7 behind the goal. I was so close to the pitch and we were very close to the dugout. Obviously, the hospitality is called the dugout. Marco Silva never shuts up for the entire 90 minutes, good or bad. At 3-0 up, he was still absolutely fuming at a few decisions that the players were making, which was really interesting to see. I think the nail in the coffin for the Wolves manager Pereira, Jack, was in the second half. I don't think he got up off his chair once. In the first half, he was very involved. In the second half, it was mostly delegated to his assistant manager. So that was very interesting to see. But I had a wonderful experience. And obviously, it's going to be wonderful when you win 3-0. And going into that game, Jack, I don't know about you, but I would have taken a scrappy, rubbish performance, 2-1 win. Just needed something to officially stop the rot. As you rightly said, we kind of stopped the rot against Wickham. But just to get back into winning ways in the Premier League. And I know that at the time of recording, we're in 14th. We might be 15th by the time this comes out, because if Everton get anything at Sunderland, we go down one place. But the table's looking a lot rosier than it was a couple of days ago, isn't it?
I would have said rosier Saturday night, and then West Ham winning has closed the gap somewhat, but Newcastle were absolutely horrendous. That was one of the worst performances I've seen from them this season and from any Premier League side this season, despite them taking the lead and having a few chances at 1-1. Just quickly, what sort of food did you have in the dugout and drinks?
Well, tell you what, I even took a picture of the menu for this very moment, and we had some sensational things. We had a small fish and chips, nice, which is great. Then we had some pulled beef croquettes, which are fantastic. Yeah. Some spicy Korean chicken with hash browns, which is fantastic. And then a sort of Frankfurter, which is wonderful, as you'd expect. You had Sean Davis in there giving a bit of a talk before the game with Ivan Berry. It was very funny, actually, because obviously there wasn't an early kickoff in the Premier League, so they stuck on the Leicester-Blackburn game. And Ivan Berry sort of said, guys, I'm really sorry, because we normally do this bit at half-time, but something had gone wrong, so they were doing it during the second half. Nothing had happened in the second half, and as soon as they started talking 2-0 Blackburn, and we unfortunately missed the boos that were echoing around the King Power. But a wonderful experience. Like I said, free drinks, so obviously for anyone like me that likes a beer, get a lot of beer. For anyone like my dad that likes a wine, you get a wine. It was a lot of fun. And would thoroughly recommend it. Definitely back in my usual spot for the next game against Sunderland. But definitely seeing what the other half win in most games, because the Riverside Stand is very, very different. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, maybe something I need to start trying to sample myself, but probably difficult in my position in the press box. And actually, to be fair, you talk about Marco Silva and the close proximity you had to him. Bournemouth away is always a good example of the press are so close to the dugout in that game, and even Brighton and others so far this season, Chelsea as well. He is so animated throughout the game. That can sometimes be a detriment to him because he can get himself booked, but he's only got himself booked, I think, a couple of times this season. He is probably the fourth official's worst nightmare because he's constantly in the ear of the fourth official. But I like that. I'd rather him be like that than, like you say, Victor Pereira, who was sat on the bench for the second half, like you said. He's now been sacked, just like Gerrard was after we beat them 3-0 a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago now, Aston Villa. Look at the trajectory they went on from Unai Emery. I don't expect Wolves, who look like they could be reappointing Gary O'Neill, which seems like a complete own goal.
They're literally reappointing him to take over the same position he left them in
Yeah,
last season,
it's
where they had such a
crazy.
dreadful start. I don't understand it.
It's unbelievable. But Joe, let's talk Fulham because I've listened to all the Wolves fallout. It's been toxic. It's been really not good, and you could tell from the away end. I genuinely felt really sorry for them. It was the first real time I've sat in a press box and actually felt bad for the away support. Whilst I was gleefully enjoying my Saturday afternoon, I'm sure everyone else was as well. Look, a 3-0 win is great. A 3-0 win that hasn't happened for Fulham since March 16th, 2024 against Spurs. I was up in the Hammersmith end of that day, and that was fantastic. But the game got off to, from my standpoint, Fulham were really sluggish out of the blocks until we got that real opening with the little deflection off the Wolves player. It fell to Jimenez down the middle, Ryan Sessegnon. It's not even a great finish from Sessegnon, but it's enough to put it beyond Johnson. And, Fulham in this game had a lot of things go their way, and that's exactly what we needed, and probably, whisper it quietly, deserved our luck.
Yeah, I think so. And ultimately, at half time, I don't think anyone could stand here or sit here, speak about the game and think that we were actually very good at all. I thought that we were better than Wolves, but I feel that the first half in particular was more to do with Wolves being poor rather than us being good. I thought that we did the basics well in terms of we kept the ball better than Wolves, we created more chances, and when we did have that one moment to actually test the keeper, it wasn't straight at him as the other two were. I mean, it wasn't in the corner. It was a bit poor from Johnson, you have to say, but ultimately, who do you want in front of that chance, in front of goal? I think it is Sessegnon. And I think they said that Wolves is now the team that he scored the most goals against in his career, in particular in the Premier League. So it was a great moment. It was a good move in a half that didn't have much. I wasn't particularly impressed with the first half, but I was just satisfied enough with what I'd seen, because the only other real time that we sort of broke through that Wolverhampton Wanderers defence was with the Josh King off the arm, off the shoulder. There was a long VAR check for that, but ultimately it was on the bit of the sleeve where it's illegal. Like, I can understand why there was a bit of sort of discourse about it because he directed his body like this, but ultimately, if a goal went in off there, it would have been allowed. So it was the right decision. It was just one of those where, in real time, and from my view a little bit lower down, it probably would have been different if I was back up in the normal seat in the Hammersmith end, I thought the defender was covering. When I see it back, Josh King's in, and I think it was the right decision. But ultimately, from that moment onwards, the game was completely and utterly killed. I don't think that Wolves had much of a threat with 11 men, but with 10 men, I mean, it was dreadful. I know they had that one cross at the very end of the half that Strand Larsen, maybe if he's in a bit more confident form, could have slid in a bit earlier and got a connection. But when sliding in to meet a cross is the best that you produced all day, I don't think you can talk about any threat there, really.
No, but part of me was frustrated at half time that we had made it difficult for ourselves once we were a man up. When you go a man up, sometimes there is maybe you're getting too comfortable, too complacent on the ball, and actually we sort of regressed a little bit from that stage. Wolves had a couple of players who could play on the break. They had Arias, they had Bellegarde, they had Strand Larsen, who were sort of the outball as such. They did get a couple of opportunities. There was the handball check on Tete, which again, just never a penalty. Yeah. They were showing the wrong angles for VAR. I was watching it on the monitor, thinking you're not showing a front angle here. You're showing the angle from behind him, which was strange. But that was cleared up. You're right. They did have the chance, and then this is what I said at half time. I was like, we basically have to take the game to Newcastle, to Wolves. I expect us to have a lot of the ball, a lot of territory, a lot of attacks. It did happen, but it took about 5 or 6 minutes of the second half for us to get going, where Wolves sort of came out and hardly put us under pressure, but had enough of the ball to make me feel a little bit nervous. And it took a while for Fulham to settle in the second half. But once we did, it was one-way traffic. It was like watching a training game, if anything, which is obviously so suited for Fulham in their current situation. The circumstances behind getting the 3 points, it could not have been more favourable for Fulham. A bit of a gift for the first goal, an own goal, a red card, and then making being so comfortable that we were allowed to make substitutions where players could come off and be rested. And we saw the best from Kevin and Chukwueze, Muniz coming off the bench as well. I thought Smith Rowe did really well when he came on as well. So it was just everything you needed. I feel confident now in this team. And I always felt confident that Fulham could probably get out of this. And once we get a win, we can sort of look upwards as opposed to over our shoulders. But it's not only that, it's the actual squad we've got. When you do look at the squad in full flow, on paper, this is even without Anthony Robinson, it does look very, very good. Yes, there is probably a midfielder light, and obviously Iwobi playing in that position is fantastic, but when he goes to AFCON, again, we're going to be light in that position. But if we can touch wood, stay injury-free, we look very, very good. And I'm looking upwards as opposed to downwards. The next two games are against Everton and Sunderland, again, a game that's been played tonight. Regardless of Sunderland's position and their good start to the season, I'd expect us to get something from the game because our home form has been very, very good. But I'm really now thinking that the one thing we've now got to do is get that first away win, and then I think we're going to start flying. And it feels as if it's been a tricky period. If that's and every season you go for a tricky period, right? You go for a run of form which is bad. If that's our worst form of the season, our worst patch of the season, which it could be, we could have another sticky spell, absolutely. And if we've already experienced that, and I don't imagine we're going to lose form the bounce at some point again this season. In my personal opinion, if that's the bad run, and we have a steady ship from now on, great. It's great news. We could have scored more. Chukwueze hit the bar, and I was really, really pleased with just the way we were allowed to sort of just have the ball, wave after wave of attack, no real out ball for Wolves. I wouldn't expect it because of their formation, because they were man down. It basically, the 5-3-2 just did not work whatsoever. Not playing Andre or João Gomes was an absolute crime, in my opinion, and the nail in the coffin for Wolves. But for Fulham, this was much needed, much morale boost, much needed for morale. And ahead of the weekend, I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing for me about that result, apart from just winning a game, is keeping a clean sheet. And a couple of mitigating factors in terms of we are playing the worst team in the league right now at home, and we also, face 10 men for around an hour of the game. But ultimately, I'm happy with a clean sheet. We don't keep many, as you rightly pointed out. What was it, 3 this calendar year in the league until Saturday? We need to keep more of them. We need to be harder to beat. I think we have been really hard to beat at home this season. And what you said is completely true about losing 4 in a row. You never want to lose 4 in a row. But if you are going to, then I would definitely argue that it was better to do it in that run of 4 games where you're playing teams that are probably right now superior to us. Maybe with the exception of, Newcastle, who, are sort of having a bit of a rocky start themselves. But you wouldn't want it to happen in these big games against Wolves and against Everton, against Sunderland. So if we can have a better run now, let's take the last 2 games in isolation before Wolves. Last season against Arsenal at home and Newcastle away, we got 4 points. This year we got 0, but we then lost at home to Wolves in the reverse fixture last season. This year, from the same 3 games, despite, let's face it, being quite poor, we picked up 1 less point. And we picked up 1 more point at home to United, away to Brighton. Yes, we didn't beat Chelsea, but there's a lot of these things which will build up in our favour if we can win the games that we should be winning at home, which we didn't last season. And I do think that is the best path to push us up the league table. These next 2 games, Jack, I really think we'd be in a fantastic position to really assert ourselves and move up the table if we could pick up 4 points from the next 2 games. I think that everything will be looking a lot rosier. I agree with you, we need an away win soon, but I do think that a point at Everton would be a decent result on face value, and then I think that we should be looking to beat Sunderland at home. They've had a fantastic start to the season. I'm not going into that expecting to win, but I am expecting Sunderland to at some point drop off a little bit. I don't think they'll go down from what I've seen so far. I think they've been fantastic, but we should be looking to win that game at home. And I do think that at home this season, we have played well in parts in every game. There were issues against Leeds. There were issues at the very start of the Man United game. There were issues in part against Arsenal, but obviously they're a very good team. And obviously the first half I didn't think was fantastic against Wolves. But we've only let in 3 at home in our games so far. Obviously that's in 5 games, and 2 of them are against teams that are doing very well in Arsenal and also in Manchester United. So Even Brentford haven't done too badly, have they? Let's face it. I know that we made them look very ordinary on that day, but I think there's a lot of reasons to be cheerful, and that's why I didn't really buy into all the sort of doom and gloom. Not to say that anyone is wrong for feeling gloomy when you're 17th in the league. Let's face it, that's a pretty crap scenario to be in when you want to be in mid-table at the very least. But I do think there's a lot of reasons to be a bit more optimistic now that we've got a lot of our squad back. And what a difference it made, Jack, having that depth off the bench the other day. You were right. Chukwueze was brilliant in his cameo. Probably should have scored the first one. The second was a brilliant effort. Smith Rowe was really, really integral in that third goal, and also setting up Chukwueze for the shot that he missed against the post for 4-0. So it was really good to see all these players involved. Swapping Raul out when he got tired for Muniz, bringing on Adama against tired legs, bringing on TC, who, let's face it, was just sort of running the show easily against 10 men. It was a really, really professional second half performance, and what we're sort of more used to seeing with this Fulham team. So I was really pleased with what I saw in the second half on Saturday.
A word on Kevin, who got his first start as well. I thought he was positive, and whenever he gets the ball, you're going to get excited. And I think that what we saw on Tuesday night against Wickham was that support of Sessegnon off the bench, and that provided that sort of outball and that overlapping run, and provided him with a bit of comfort on the outside. And then Kevin had a couple of opportunities on Tuesday, and then Saturday he was much more. The balls went out to him a lot. Ryan Sessegnon on his outside, etc., etc. And I think Kevin's probably in a situation where his end product obviously needs to improve, and that's what Marco Silva said after the game. But we really are in a good position where players will improve under Marco Silva, as they've always done. And this is why you look at the situation, and when you lose 4 in a row and you've got a manager who's out of contract in the summer with injuries, you're thinking, oh, this is looking pretty perilous and pretty grim, regardless of what happens at the end of the season in terms of position in the table. But when you've got a win and basically 99% of the squad back and everyone playing and it looking really nice and neat and tidy, you're thinking this is a great project. You've got Kevin, you've got Muniz, you've got King, you've got Smith Rowe, all these players you want to see how they blossom long term at Fulham. And with a manager still out of contract at the end of the summer, it really does point to, I think, quite an important January transfer window. I think it might be the most important January transfer window of Silva's tenure, because he will want that midfielder, because we're losing 3 players for AFCON as well. Interesting point someone made to me yesterday about, will they play? Nigeria don't play until, I believe, the 22nd or 23rd of December. Their first game, and we play against Newcastle on the 17th. So will they be around to play in that Carabao Cup game? Beside the point, in January we're going to be, within that period we're going to have 3 players not with us. We already, I believe, are a midfielder short. It's a game of cat and mouse for me. If the board are going to say, we want you to sign the contract, and Marco will say, well, if you guarantee me backing in January, then I'll sign the contract, and they'll go, well, we'll give you the money if you sign the contract, and it just goes on and on and on. I don't know whether this is the conversations they're having, but from my position, I sort of would see it in that way. It's a game of chess. It's a game of, like I say, cat and mouse, and it's just going to and fro. I would like to think, because of what Khan has said in his interview with TalkSport, is that he wants Marco Silva as part of his long-term plans. Well, then, in my opinion, that is, that's a catalyst. That's a reason to sort of give him money to spend in January, get in that extra midfielder that he wants, or if any other depth of position that we need can be filled, then that will make him happier. And then if he does sign the contract, then everyone's happy. I'd much rather sort of, take care of the squad and make the manager happy. And then put him in a position where he's more likely to sign the contract. I don't really know why I'm bringing it up after a 3-0 win, but it's just something that I've been thinking about, obviously, because it's something that is going to be asked more and more as the season progresses. It
doesn't go away, does it? Like the uncertainty, no. Like the win is great, but let's remember what we were all thinking last week. We're thinking, okay, we're in a bit of spot of bother here, and this win is great, but the long-term future of the club, in my opinion, does depend on what happens with this Marco Silva situation. And there is a big way of trying to keep him, and that is this January transfer window. We still need a midfielder. That is absolutely for sure. And in my opinion, we could also do with another forward at least. So let's see what happens. I think that there's elements of our depth in defence as well. You know, you mentioned what we spoke about left back. I thought Sessegnon had a great game, albeit not against the toughest opposition on that right hand side for Wolves. But if Robinson continues to be out long term, I don't particularly want our backups to be a centre-back playing in that position in Bassi or Cuenca. I also don't particularly want it to be Timothy Castagne because he's not left-footed. And the way that we play, when we need someone to overlap, I don't think that really works. So I'd be interested to see what happens there. I mean, as we come into this game against Everton, Jack, Everton are one of these teams where I sort of thought they'd had a better start to the season than in reality they actually have. And obviously the perception of their season will change if they were to go to Sunderland and win. I don't think it would change much if they drew. It would certainly not change if they lost. But I think that Tottenham at home game was a bit of a wake-up call where I don't think they were bad in the game, but they end up losing 3-0, struggling from set pieces, not creating too many clear-cut chances. And I think that was a bit of a wake-up call that, okay, this season hasn't started as positively as you may have thought for Everton, who there was a lot of excitement in the summer with a lot of the signings they've made. I think quite rightly in a lot of cases. David Moyes obviously had a great end to the season with them in the new stadium, which obviously going to be very exciting for anyone going. So it's one of these games where I think it is a bit of a banana skin, maybe an obvious banana skin, where on their day I think Everton can beat anyone at home. I really do, especially when the crowd gets behind them. On their day, I also could see Fulham going there and literally, I could see us going there, winning 3-0 or losing 3-0. It's one of those games where I literally don't know how it's going to go because I think Everton are a bit of a funny team where you don't really know what you're going to get, and Fulham are as well at the moment, I think as well. So in terms of the team that I want to go there, I want us to go there and be very positive. I don't really see any obvious reasons to change the team that started against Wolves. There are a couple of players that I wouldn't be surprised if they came in. I'm thinking Muniz for Raul, because I thought Raul looked knackered, if I'm honest. I know he's had a week gap, but he's been playing a lot of football. I also would be very happy if Chukwueze started on the right wing. I thought he looked so bright, and Wilson scored a fantastic goal and looked very bright in the second half. But in the first half, I wasn't hugely impressed, so I would like to see that happen. I do hope that, with no disrespect to Lukic, who I think has been fantastic, I do hope that he doesn't go back to the Lukic-Berger duo, just because I thought that Iwobi and King with Berger behind gave us so much more going forward, and I would love to see us take the game to Everton. It would not surprise me if that is the midfield we do see at all. What do you think?
I think it would be slightly regressive to stick Iwobi out on the left hand side and then put Kevin back on the bench, and because I don't think Kevin's done anything wrong to lose a place, and if anything, you know, I still think the Berger Iwobi King midfield is incredibly balanced.
Yeah.
And what Iwobi brought to the game off the ball, the way the match of the day analysis was perfect. The way he detracted Krejci in the midfield and opened up the space on the right hand side.
Yeah.
And that's how the goal came about. Like, that's really intelligent off the ball play from Iwobi, and that obviously goes completely under the radar. You're not going to spot that in the ground after 3 or 4 parallels, are you? So it's obviously the match of the day analysis that's really sort of wooed me and sort of, you know, moved me, really.
Yeah.
Wooed and moved me. But I think, and obviously, like, look, if we are, you know, if you look at the performance against Newcastle, we went there to win, right? Now you've got more attacking options. Let's go to Everton to win, okay? So let's start Kevin on the left-hand side. Let's keep Iwobi in the midfield again. And look, if it's not working, if we need to switch things around, we have Lukic to bring off the bench. We have Smith Rowe to bring off the bench. Like, suddenly you're looking at all these options and you're going, if things aren't going our way, or if things are going our way, we've got great options to bring off the bench. And, you know, suddenly we're blinded because we've got so many injuries. You're looking at the squad and go, God, we're in dire straits here. We're sort of, you know, thin on the ground. Then you get them all back, or 5 of them back, and you're thinking we're in a great spot. So I completely agree with you. I'd like to see Muniz start. Yet to start a game, obviously, since signing the new deal, because he's been injured. That was his first appearance since signing the new deal. I don't think Wilson deserves to be dropped. Mm-hmm. I'd rather Chukwueze came off the bench and made an impact. Probably a better option to have over over Adama Traore.
Sure.
Kevin on the left hand side to give us something on the break, a bit of pace and trickery. Iwobi, very strong runner down the middle and brilliant off the ball as well. Berger, I thought, was really good, and I think he's a good sitter. And the same back four, because I think Cess has done really well. And Cess is out of contract this summer.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason, and this is just personal opinion, I've got no intel or anything, but you'd imagine, the tap of the badge, the way he sort of rejuvenated his career at Fulham under Marco Silva. If someone put another 2-year deal on the table for him, even a 3-year deal, I think he signs it in a heartbeat.
I've got to say,
he signs in a heartbeat, and he deserves a pay rise as well for the contributions he's done.
I'm not worried about Cess signing a new deal. I am worried about Wilson signing a new deal. Because he's also out of contract, and it's one of those where if it does get to January, do the Tyreek George sort of rumours come out again? I don't want Wilson to leave for what it's worth at all, but I also don't want to lose him for free. So it's going to be an interesting one. We're going to have to see what happens there. That's one to keep an eye on, I think.
With Leeds as well on deadline day. I mean, it's just not what you want.
I would definitely think that Wilson would commit if it was offered, but are we offering the terms he wants? That's the question. Cess, I'm not worried about. I think Cess will stay.
100%.
What do you think the score's going to be, Jack?
I'm going to watch Everton tonight and make up my mind about them. If you look at their form, Everton, they've lost 3 of the last 5 league games, and 3 of them those 3 games were against Liverpool, Man City, and Spurs. They've only lost 1 home game all season.
Yeah.
The 1-1 draw to West Ham. West Ham under Nuno, they came back into the game after going behind. They beat Palace in the last minute of the game through Jack Grealish, and that sort of deflected, bounced off him and went in, but it was a good tenacity to get there. They drew 0-0 to Aston Villa, which was a good result. Beat Wolves 3-2. But lost to Leeds on the opening day, but also beat Brighton in their first home game as well. I mean, they've had a weird start to the season where they've got good results against the teams they should get good results against.
Yeah.
They haven't lost apart from Leeds away, and they were dreadful that night.
And still should have drawn that game because that was never a penalty.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to back Fulham here. I think that we've got... Look, there are players that strike fear into me. Rejuvenated Jack Grealish, and Njai. These players are really, really tricky. Dewsbury Hall, Beto, some really good options. And they have got better under David Moyes and as a unit, and their back four is way better than it was. But I'm going to back Fulham to do the business here and get their first away win. I think we're going to see a bit of a bounce from Fulham now after that win. And I think the goals are going to come from Kevin and King.
Wow.
King Kevin, 2-1 Fulham.
Well, you know what, Jack? I come here every week and I say we're going to draw 1-1 with basically anyone. But I'm also feeling positive. And from the sounds of it, I'm actually feeling slightly more positive than you. I think we're going to win 3-1 on Saturday. I've just got a feeling like you. I feel that 2-1 up and then a goal on the break for the third with all those options that you just mentioned off the bench. I do think that I thought I saw something click in that second half. And I hope it's not a false dawn, because if we play like that in the second half, we create a lot of good chances, and we were very clinical when we did get them, apart from that one Chukwueze against the post. So feeling positive. Obviously, wait and see Everton tonight. At the time of recording, you'll have seen how they got on by the time you're watching or listening to this. But just something about the way that Tottenham went there, and I'm not hugely impressed with Tottenham. I think that we can all get a result. I'm not hugely impressed with West Ham, obviously, either, and they went there and got a draw and created quite a few chances a couple of Mondays ago. So feeling positive, going to go for 3-1 Fulham. I do think that Kevin is going to get his first Fulham goal. I'd love to see Josh King get his first Premier League official Fulham goal as well. And yeah, I've got a feeling Mooney is going to score in this one. I've got a feeling Mooney's going to get a goal.
Yeah, when you said 3-1, I was thinking Chukwueze getting a third off the bench, but I would be so up for the cup if Muniz scored.
Yeah,
Everton, it'd be helpful if Keane or Tarkowski got themselves sent off, wouldn't it? It is interesting how playing against 10 men. I don't want to just, the second half performance was a complete training match really, because they had nothing going forward for the vast majority of it. But then again, I still think we've got enough to put any team under pressure. And again, a win breeds confidence, and that's all you need. All you need is one win. I don't want to be looking downwards. I want to be looking upwards. I think even a point would be a good result.
100%. I'd be happy with a point to put it out there.
we had such a wretched record at Goodison Park until the very end of the Goodison Park sort of reign, and we got some really good results there, including the cup game as well. So to start at the Hill Dickinson with our first game ever there and to win would be fantastic. Are you going? I know you've got a big affiliation with Everton.
I'm actually not going to this one, unfortunately, but my dad is going to be there. And he's very excited for it. Hopefully next year, assuming we both stay up, it'll be my first trip to the Hill Dickinson. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, regular to Goodison. And until the last couple of years, like you say, had wretched luck there. I've also got family ties, so that was never fun because often had family in the home end. But yeah, to anyone going, enjoy it. Sold out 3,000 allocation, going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully, to take us into the international break, a positive result of some sort.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this has been a good week for Fulham, all things considered. Almost went out the cup, but thanks to Issa Diop and his wonderful penalty, and again, like the fact he was dropped from the squad is probably nothing to do with his ability. It's just the fact that we had extra attackers in the squad. Therefore, one centre back on the bench, and Cuenca just made the cut, which is fine. Joe, thanks so much for being here.
Pleasure, Jack. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. Enjoy the game on Saturday.
Yep, very positive Jack and Joe show, which is good after 4 defeats in a row, which is very rare, yeah. But look, hopefully Fulham can start getting themselves up the table, because I think we're a very good team, we're a very good manager, and we're looking at a good spot when everyone's fit and healthy. And again, like I mentioned it, Anthony Robinson, if Anthony Robinson was available and he was running down that left-hand side, linking up with the 10, with Iwobi and with Kevin, like it would just be a dream to watch. That's nothing to take away from Sessegnon, who's been brilliant, but you know the attacking qualities that Robinson brings with his speed, etc., etc. And I think now that might be, I tweeted at the weekend that Sessegnon scored back-to-back games against Wolves. For Fulham, I don't know if he was involved with the 4-1 defeat, because if he wasn't, it would be back-to-back-to-back, because he scored the one in the Boxing Day game against Wolves, in the 1-1 draw in the terrible relegation season as well, Joe.
Yeah, he's got a good record against them, because I remember him scoring against them in the Championship when we beat him 2-0 at home. So yeah, good record. And yeah, like I said before, probably ironically not a striker, but probably the one player you want for that chance to fall to, in all honesty, in our squad.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and we'll be back again very, very soon with a new Jack and Joe show. Come on, Fulham, and let's get a result at the Hill Dickinson.